to succeed, we welcome businesses who share our vision and values to join us. Now I would like to go over tonight's event agenda. Firstly, our president will give us a quick welcome speech. Then our special guest from Equifax, Mr. Brad Walters, will talk about new construction industry rating tool and how it works and how the industry will benefit. After that, our special guest from BINA, Mr. Chris Kelly, will share some rating insights and application experience. Lastly, we will have a Q&A section. If you have any questions, please leave your message in the chat room. I will be collecting them and we will go through them with our guest at the end. Next, I would like to thank the sponsors for today's event. CBEM Constructions is a Sydney-based civil construction company established in 2018, which is primarily engaged in civil construction, environmental remediation, engineering management, land development management, and plant hire. Avantic Construction is a residential builder who focuses in low and medium density residential projects, which range from townhouse to multi-res apartment constructions. NetStrata currently manages hundreds of schemes in New South Wales with thousands of individual lots across a range of property types. Their company features 40 industry experts and 25 strata managers. Everstone is an Australian group established in 1994. They specializes in design, manufacture, and sales of lifestyle decorative materials, including porcelain tiles, porcelain slabs, and mosaics. Also, on behalf of our association, I would like to thank all of our NN sponsors. Without your support and trust, the association would not be what it is today. Now let's invite our President Hao Liu to give us a welcome speech.
Hi everyone, thanks Andy. Thanks everyone for attending this very exclusive events. And we are actually very honored to have Brad and Yash from Equifax to give us opportunity to actually give all the audience today, for builders and developers, to understand how this rating system works and how this is going to be benefit our industry. I remember actually that was last year when we first talking with the building commissioner David Chandler about this rating system, and seems everyone start notice this is so important later on for especially for developers and builders to be recognized by the end users, or let's say clients, the buyers. So we received quite a few inquiries from our members that are asking about how actually this rating system needs to be done and how it works. So it's a very good opportunity today that you sharing all these insights to all the audience. And also would like to thank you, Chris Kelly from BINA Group. So as I'm not sure if everyone knows BINA, they are top tier builder based in New South Wales, and they did, I think, quite a few large scale jobs across the whole New South Wales, and it's very kind for them to actually sharing this their application experiences. So that will be a really benefit for everyone here today to following the tips of doing this whole application. Again, thanks very much all the sponsors. I have to read their name again. CB Constructions, Event Constructions, Nestrata, and Everton. Thank you so much for sponsoring these events. Also needs to thank Carson, Tom, Andy, with all your efforts to make this happen. And last, thank you all the audience. There are many friends of mine. Thanks for coming to the events. I hope that you guys can get a lot of outcome from these events. So at the last, I think Australian Chinese community is very lucky that we celebrate New Year's twice. And so take this opportunity to also wish everyone best year of Tiger. All right, I'll leave all the time to Brad.
Thank you very much, President Hao. I'll just get this slide. Now let's welcome Mr. Brad Waters, Head of Product and Rating Services from Equifax, to present us the new construction industry rating tool and how it works and how the industry will benefit. Let's welcome Mr. Waters.
Well, thank you, Andy, and also thank you, President Howe, and also Carson, for the opportunity to present and talk about the new independent construction industry ratings tool. But it's probably appropriate to deal with the elephant in the room first, which was that profile picture. I think you were just sharing up a moment ago, Andy, of my face. I think COVID might have been rougher on some of us than others, and clearly it hasn't been my friend. But in any event, we're not here to talk about me tonight. It's very good to see so many taking the time and the interest to learn more about what iCIRT is. Tonight, we're going to talk about not only iCIRT, but importantly, how it's been developed, how the tool will assist the market. And we're going to take a bit of time to think through and discuss some of the key rating factors, what makes up the iCIRT tool. Most importantly, we're going to spend a bit of time to understand how it's going to build trust across the market. As we progress through tonight, we'll touch on a number of points, but it's probably good to start with some of the key themes. And the first one is that no doubt everyone on the call knows that the Building Commissioner is calling everyone to be rated. The government is encouraging the market to use rated players and to be eligible for the government's trustworthy constructor group of developers and builders is to obtain and publish their rating. Ratings will also feed into the government's new Building Assurance Solution, or BAS for those that might be familiar with that acronym, which is also going to house and use trust indices on built assets. Ratings are also going to be used for builders' warranty insurance purposes, and some of you may be familiar with the recent regulatory updates that CIRA have advised around the Home Builders Compensation Fund and how ratings can be used in eligibility and pricing decisions for builders' warranty insurance. But ratings are also going to benefit and support insurance and financiers more broadly around their loans and insurance policies. And the market is increasingly going to look to engage rated players. iCIRT has been designed specifically to recognise and to promote those that are trusted and rated. So what we might do is we'll as we go to the first slide, thanks, Alan, it might be helpful to start with why and how has iCIRT developed? Many will be familiar with the fact that there have been numerous reports around building confidence, and it's predated the Shergold-Weir report, Building Confidence Report. There's been numerous reports since, all talking about building confidence. The media has obviously been taken particular note around the elevated concern of defects, and there's a growing need for trust. So we've worked across the public and private sector for the last couple of years with a number of industry associations, various government agencies, insurers, banks, industry, and representatives of purchasers, with a view of collectively identifying what are the key attributes that will really importantly assist in restoring confidence. And ultimately, iCIRT's been designed with a consumer-facing lens, looking for constructors, being builders, developers, certifiers, practitioners, and others, being able to demonstrate their capability to deliver safe, compliant, durable assets. On the next slide, thanks, Alan, we'll talk a little bit about the fact that the building industry is a really interesting industry. It's an industry that is made up of a number of different players, each within that ecosystem having various dependencies because many are obviously delivered through a cascaded delivery model. And what ratings are seeking to achieve is to extend the focus from looking at individual ratings to project player compositions. iCIRT's designed to lift the corporate veil, to look at those expanded relationships and the data and insights across those various relationships. It's looking for the connection of either, hopefully not, poor or non-compliant or high-risk behaviours and how that impacts the overall outcome. But more importantly, looking for evidences of performance and trustworthiness in the delivery of built assets. Ultimately, everyone's iCIRT will feed through into the building's trust index. There's going to be a growing focus and awareness on each of the various players and their participants' role and rating that contribute to that built assets trustworthiness index. On the next slide, thanks, Alan, we're going to look at what's in an iCIRT rating. What's it based on? Well, all in all, there's a range of important attributes that are used, sourced from thousands of data points, that really look at 6 core areas. Those 6 core areas are there on the page in front of you. In that semicircle, we'll start with the top right, which is character. That's in grey, which is really looking at the background, the bona fides of all the key persons. And we're going to touch on some of these in a bit more detail shortly. But to introduce each of these areas, character is looking at the people. It's looking at the local and global media, the trustworthiness and or adverse attributes. Secondly, in orange is capability. It's really looking at the trading history, past projects, various licenses, insurances, insurance history. Importantly, the experience of the business and its practitioners, and the operational maturity and governance. Next in green is the conduct, looking at the track record, looking at the various statutory obligations, tax payments, other payments, safety and regulator intervention, and judgments. In darker blue, there is capacity, which is looking at the project schedule, the pipeline, the order book, the cash flow projections and liquidity in order to fund the work in progress. In red is the capital. It's looking at the structure of the business, the shareholders' funds, the facilities and or funding lines, guarantees, and the borrowing capacity of the builder or developer. And lastly, there in the top left in aqua is the counterparties, looking at the various related parties and the extent of support, or hopefully not risk, that those various parties may bring, including key trading partners and or funding dependencies. And in summary, thanks Alan, on the next slide, they're brought together collectively to provide the overall star rating outcome. Each of the 6 criteria are all scored, showing areas of relative strength, and iCIRT itself reflects the overall trust index through a system that provides 1 through 5-star rating outcome, and we'll talk about that in a bit more detail shortly. Importantly, it shows also the positioning relative to the industry more broadly. And what's really encouraging when we've looked at New South Wales Class 2 builders, developers, certifiers, and others, is that nearly half are showing much higher confidence scores. We envisage that the underlying risk indices will be of great interest to financiers, insurers, and many others as a part of their ongoing decision-making process. On the next slide, thanks, Alan. Again, it's helpful to spend a bit more time understanding what are some of the attributes and how do they actually influence or impact each of these core areas. So there in the top left, again, character. We spoke earlier about the background checks on the various key persons of the business, and that includes office holders, directors, proprietaries, shareholders, ultimate beneficial owners, in the case of a builder, a qualified nominated supervisor, those that have an ability to significantly influence or impact the delivery, operational decisions, financial decisions, or commercial decisions of the business. Then in orange below that is the capability. And so that's where we look at the various number of years trading. How long has a business been trading for? We look at public records and the public registry data, insurances and claims, and the maturity of the various operating practices. In green, conduct, looking at the trading performance. I think we spoke earlier around looking at court judgments or activities, incidents, undertakings, and evidences of signs of good performance and trustworthy behaviours. Then in darker blue is the capacity, and the various attributes there are looking at the operational activity, particularly the project pipeline, the cash flow schedules, the liquidity, and how they're going to support the delivery of their existing pipeline of work. In red, the capital is again looking at the shareholders' funds. It's spending some time to understand the way in which the business is funding its book. In the case of sales, if they're off the plan, looking at the extent of off-the-plan sales, looking at the various funding sources, guarantees that might be in place. And then in Aqua, again, the counterparties, and that's where we shared earlier. It's looking at the key trading partners, the way in which those partners are assessed, the third-party management processes, due diligence of third parties, oversight of third parties, and other related parties to the builder, developer, certifier, or practitioner. On the next slide, thanks, Alan, is where we actually start to answer the question, how do I go about obtaining a rating? Now, iCIRT, it's a holistic performance-based review that really requires an opportunity to take the time to understand the way in which builders or developers or others are managing their business. What are their practices? What level of oversight occurs on site? How are safety incidents managed? And it's through that process that we're able to provide the transparency to restore trust. And that's the focus for this forum. Is on the far right-hand side is the process to obtain a gold rating outcome. It's known as a detailed process, and that's where we work with the builder or developer to go through a number of questions to better understand how they manage their projects and the delivery of those projects, and ultimately the insurance around the quality and the trustworthiness of the built asset. The government has outlined the minimum eligibility criteria in order to join the government's trustworthy constructor group of developers, builders, and others, which is obtaining and publishing their iCIRT gold rating outcome. Also, the government's been looking to advise the market to only work with those that have published their rating, which is available through that detailed assessment that we're talking about on the right. So what does an iCIRT rating look like? On the next slide, thanks, Alan, is we provide a high-level outline of what does a report that contains this rating look like. And you'll see there as you work across the slide from left to right, it firstly outlines what the star rating is, the various scores across each of those criteria, and importantly, some of the key contributing factors that have resulted in that rating outcome. We also take the time to have a debrief session to work through the information in that report. It's a great opportunity to confirm and correct any areas of fact, to take the time to understand those factors, and to enable guidance around how a business has been assessed, and importantly, how it compares to others. It also highlights some areas that may potentially benefit the business from a closer review. But most importantly, it enables a developer or builder an ability to publish their rating to build market confidence. And so you'll receive a rating that can be used on your website, in your email signatures, your marketing collateral, your communications, as a part of being able to build confidence around your brand. On the next slide, thanks, Alan. It's important for the market to be able to effectively have the confidence of an independent and or regulated provider being able to provide a rigorous review of a builder or developer in order to determine the extent of risk or vis-a-vis extent of trustworthiness. And that's what players have been looking for in order to differentiate themselves from those that may have something to hide. There's a growing interest across the market to identify those that are trusted and rated. And we spoke briefly earlier about some developments that CIRA, as the regulator of ICAR has updated their guidelines to accept ratings as a part of the eligibility process for builders' warranty insurance. Working with the government around incorporating iCIRT into the new building assurance solution that we spoke about earlier, which is the repository of documents relating to a built asset. And the iCIRT ratings will feed through into that process to lift the trust indice on those buildings. We're also working with the insurance industry and with financiers and others around how iCIRT can also support other insurance products and funding and facilities lines. The future will be divided into those that are rated and those that are in the shadows. On the next slide, thanks, Alan, is how does one go about obtaining their rating? Well, it's a very simple three-step process. Firstly, it's about taking the time to understand what's involved, and then obviously agreeing to move forward. Secondly, that line in blue, which is about providing a number of evidences to support the trustworthiness of the business, as well as the consent to go and conduct a number of important background checks on the various key persons. And then lastly, the third step in green along the bottom is taking the time to review the outcome, understanding the key drivers and factors that have influenced that outcome, confirming there are no errors of fact, and then determining how you want to use that rating. If it's just for your own internal purposes only and it's not shared anywhere else, or instead, if you might be interested in publishing that rating to continue to build the brand. We've received positive feedback from those that have gone through the process, and particularly the way in which they've valued the insights that the iCIRT rating process has enabled them to learn even more about not just their own business, but importantly, how they compare to others, and the opportunity to be recognised as a rated player. Please don't leave it to the last minute to obtain your rating, as the process can take 4 to 6 weeks. The good news is it doesn't take months and years. On the next slide, thanks, Alan, as we talk about what information is required. So this is a summary, but all the things that are there are things that one would expect that a trustworthy builder or developer would otherwise have readily available. Information on the key persons, which as we shared earlier is the directors, ultimate beneficial owners, in a builder's case, a nominated qualified supervisor, and the permission and consent to perform those background checks on those key persons. Secondly, it's looking at the project schedule, as well as the completed projects, as well as the current projects in train. Thirdly, it's looking at the historic and latest financials, the trading performance of the business, and it's taking the time to then discuss the operating practices and project oversight. All quite simple and straightforward. In effect, an opportunity to be providing evidences that supports the rating outcome. On the next slide, thanks, Alan. We talk more here about complex group structures. For those that might be operating a number of different business vehicles or special purpose vehicles, or SPVs for short. And in those situations, it might be appropriate to consider rating your corporate sponsor. In those situations, we'll consider the relationship between a sponsor and the individual business entity. Various types of linkages that are important to determine the strength of that relationship between a sponsor and an SPV or another entity within that broader group structure are there on the right-hand side of the page. We're looking at the legal or contractual linkages, the operational linkages, financial linkages, and the strategic or reputational linkages between a sponsor and various businesses. The individual business may, where those relationships are strong, benefit from the rating of a corporate sponsor. So what does it cost? On the next slide, thanks, Alan. It's around $6,000 to obtain a gold rating. There's an additional fee for each key person. It's about $300. That covers the cost of the background checks that we need to perform. And depending on the outcome and what you would like to do, there may also be a disclosure fee or a publishing fee if you want to publish your rating. Published ratings can be included on your website, email signatures, marketing collateral, and in your communications campaigns. And there are a number of agency guidelines to support the quality, the integrity, the veracity of trusted and rated players. The issue isn't so much, can you afford a rating? But as you look forward, the question will be, can you afford not to be rated? The market will be looking to the public-facing ratings dashboard around late March to see those that are on that list, those that are trusted and rated. We've been greatly encouraged by the positive feedback we've received around this process. We might just go to the next slide. Thanks, Alan. And there's been a number of those that have gone through the process and taken the time to actually share with us their insights and their feedback. And you'll see there on the left, for developers and builders and others that have gone through this, there's a range of benefits that they've shared with us. Whether it's about identifying opportunities to further refine or improve their own business practices, whether it's about lifting confidence for consumers and purchasers, around increasing or improving their access to insurance or finance, and importantly, improve transparency for the government and regulators. All things being equal, you would have heard the government talk about those that have a higher likelihood of regulatory intervention are likely to exhibit attributes and characteristics of higher risk, and or vis-a-vis, all things being equal, are less likely to be exhibiting the signs of trustworthy behaviours that one would hope. There's a wide range of benefits for the broader market, and we've spoken about some of those earlier, but most notably, purchases. On the next slide, we talk about why is Equifax providing this service. Many of you may already be familiar with the fact that Equifax is a global data analytics and technology company, canvassing information all over the world. We're a leading commercial bureau in Australia, and the company has a ratings license as a regulated ratings agency. We also have a deep working knowledge of the residential building industry and are a trusted data exchange for the government and financial services industry. And our focus is on improving transparency to build trust and confidence for all stakeholders. Later we'll open for questions, but if you'd like to learn more, we also have a lot of information available on our website, which is buildrating.com. And towards the end of the session, Andy will also provide some details of Yash. If you would like further details, Yash would be very happy to connect and to discuss in more detail. Also look forward to a Q&A session shortly. So right now I might just hand back to Andy.
Thank you very much, Brad, for your very informative and valuable sharing. Today, we also invited another speaker, Mr. Chris Kelly, General Manager of BINA, to share more insights and rating application experience. Let's welcome Mr. Kelly to take over the screen.
Thank you, Andy. I'll take over the screen now.
Yeah.
Now I can't seem to get my...
Just press play.
Yes. I might need you to do that, it looks like.
Okay, or maybe you can just do it from the slides like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll try to run through that there. No, my won't let me through that.
You can't go to the next page?
No, it won't let me navigate.
Okay, just give me a
Hi,
second.
Chris. Is that possible to just forward that copy email to Andy? Maybe we can
I can share.
that.
I can share from my screen. Yeah.
Okay.
About Chris, I'll share my screen. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys see my screen?
Yeah, that's great.
It's good.
Well, look, I'll let you drive then, and
Sure.
And I might firstly give my thanks to President Howe for inviting us this evening, and also a very warm hello to all those in the CBA. Such a large community, so it's great to be part of the night. So just a little bit about myself then. If you go to the next slide. Fantastic. So, yep, Chris Kelly, General Manager of BINA. I've been in the construction industry for over 27 years, and in that time had the privilege of working with so many very talented people. And in that time, I've built over 4,000 apartments. So that's a lot of kitchens, a lot of bathrooms, a lot of bedrooms. And the wonderful thing about building apartments is you're building someone's home, and there's a real end to that story. So I'll just get you to my next slide. Thank you. And in that time, I've had the privilege of being part of some teams that have won some very wonderful awards, winning the Master Builders Awards for Excellence in Construction for residential and mixed-use developments in 2015, 16 and 2019, and also UDIA and Urban Task Force Awards. Next slide. Also in that time, had the opportunity to be part of many industry advisory roles, both in the UDIA as the DPP bill got drafted and then turned into an act, a sounding board to the iCIRT development, and then also part of the Decennial Liability Insurance Advisory Panel. Next slide. I live on the Northern Beaches in Sydney, and just before Christmas, I don't know if you remember, we had some very wild weather, and I was walking down the street around the corner from my house, and I literally saw this tree that had been completely blown over and squashed this car. Next slide, thanks. It's amazing how a big tree like that can have very shallow roots, and when that happens, it all goes wrong. Next slide, thanks. Sydney had a really interesting journey. Pre-Olympics, when I was working in residential, you'd be lucky to be working on a building site that built apartments more than 5 stories. And then after the Olympics, obviously everything changed. In the last 10 years, we've seen the residential buildings get taller and taller, and in places outside the CBD, stretching out to the greater Sydney, and putting apartments where they need to be, and near rail corridors, and turning old industrial lands into homes. But along that way, the industry had to do some catch-up football, and so programs like what Brad's being part of is an important part of that journey, and that's something that I think we're all getting on board that train. Next slide, thanks. So came along our opportunity to be part of the iCIRT rating, and I thought to share some insights as to why would we choose to get rated. Well, I guess as Brad's already shared, the idea of being a trusted player. I think not only does the government want to push us to being a trusted player, but our customers and our industry wants us all to be there, so that we can really turn the apartment market into a safe place to put your money and to buy an apartment in. We found that in doing that, but there was a great opportunity. So it wasn't just about being a trusted player, but also the opportunity to add depth to what we already do. The process allows that. But also it's the gift that keeps giving. So our aim in the process is not only do we reach the trusted player goal, but obviously getting consumer confidence is there, but we want to get the confidence with the stratas and the building managers we work with. We want to get our finances confidence, but we also want to get our insurers confidence. We want to bring our insurance premiums down. At the moment, that system doesn't work, and the premiums that we all pay are a crazy cost to the industry. So our goal is that we can bring our premiums down. Next slide, thanks. So the journey isn't too daunting. So Brad's given a pretty comprehensive slide, and that information is pretty daunting. But at the end of the day, the journey is not that hard. we found it really easy with Brad and Yash and their team. Really, the engagement process is quite simple and moves forward pretty quickly. The assessment platform isn't too hard either. I think that the trick is if you've got a business that's obviously hasn't started tomorrow and has a little bit of stability and has accreditation systems. So we're coming from a building company part of the industry, but having ISO accredited systems in quality and safety and environmental, and having audited financial books, those things go a long way to getting you on the process there in the accreditation. Next slide, thanks. So I'll just go back one more. So my feeling is that it's not the process being not mandatory is obviously true, but I feel that in some ways it's probably a bit like not being vaccinated with COVID. You can still be part of society, but they make it very hard for you to participate. So we sort of next slide, thanks. We sort of feel that the journey on there is one that is not only building the confidence, but our experience is that we just really need to do it to be part of the longer vision in Class 2 projects and delivering Class 2 construction. As far as the iCIRT process and the Equifax team, look, we found the guys very helpful. So I would encourage you to reach out and bombard them and make them busy over the next couple of weeks. Brad's photo is a bit different to how we started, but I think George Clooney make grey hair look good these days. So I would keep rocking it, and I'll hand it back over to you, Andy.
Thank you very much. Okay. Before our Q&A section, I would like to remind our audience, we have translated today's presentation slides into Chinese. If you would like to get a copy of the Chinese version or the English version of the PowerPoint, please scan the barcode on the right-hand side of the screen. Also, I would like to give special thanks to Leo Wang from Enhance Project, who assists with the Chinese translation. Our team will send you a copy through the WeChat once you add them. Okay, next, I would like to invite Brad and Chris back to the screen for the questions. The first question we have is from our member business, Energy Trade. They are an industry-leading energy solution company who services over 100 developers in Australia. They think your rating system is great. They want to know if energy impacts the rating system at all and how they can help with the ratings for their developer partners and clients and associates.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Andy, for that question. A great question, and really appreciate the feedback, by the way. Yes, so very much an important feature on our roadmap. We've certainly explored a number of different data providers, data sources, and information around energy and how that can actually contribute and feed into, in a meaningful way, the iCIRT rating outcome. At present, we have a number of processes that we use to better understand the way in which builders, developers, and built assets have considered that within their environmental management plan, but we're continuing to discuss with a number of partners and interested parties to assist in guiding us around other ways that we might be able to further bolster that. There's certainly strong interest around carbon emissions, the carbon footprint, and I would welcome the opportunity to connect and discuss that in more detail offline, but a great question. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And the second question is also from our member business on Wealthy Pie. They are a fund company and they are also a committee member of the Chinese Building Association of New South Wales. Their question is, when do you think this rating will be rolled out to the majority of the developers, and how the government may incentive to speed up the rollout process?
Yeah, look, there'll be a number of different initiatives that are being run in parallel that will actually significantly drive the market momentum and uptake, but I think you'll find that those will invariably create a pull mechanism in due course. Where we are at the moment is the government has outlined that they're looking for initially a cohort of 50 published ratings on developers and builders by the end of March. So our team's pretty busy, as Chris alluded, with a lot of parties reaching out to connect with us in order to see if they can make that timeframe. From the end of March, we'll actually be releasing to the broader market a public-facing ratings dashboard of all of those parties that have gone through to obtain their gold rating outcome. And it's fair to say, Andy, that there's a large number of players that are trying to get into that list. It also coincidentally happens to be a precursor and an eligibility criteria in order to join the government's trustworthy constructor group of developers and builders, which is one of a multitude of initiatives the government is looking at to drive market uptake and build momentum. But equally too, there's been a large number of forums that we've held and attended panel sessions across the insurance industry, across with financiers, with the legal fraternity, around how various other parties are looking to use ratings in their processes. Many on the call will also be familiar with the government's Building Assurance Solution, or their BAS solution, which will be a repository to house a lot of documentation and information in relation to a built asset. It'll have the declared designs, the as-builts, the certifications, and importantly, iCIRT and the iCIRT ratings will feed into the BAS solution to assist in opining on the overall trustworthiness index of the built asset. That will also drive a significant uptake across the market. So in addition to the fact that we've got a pretty full order book, or quite a full dance card, as Yash might say, the government's also called out that they're looking for 100 to be published by June, and then 300 by the end of the year. And so that's likely to drive quite a lot of momentum over the course of the next bunch of months. And as people that get rated see the value and the utility of being able to promote and be recognized as a trusted and rated player in the market, I think you'll see there's a lot of economic benefits that flow through to those that have gone through that process. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you very much, Brad. And next question is, which disciplines are required to be rated besides developers and builders? What about PCA, architect, engineers, project managers?
Yeah, ultimately all. It's interesting. Lloyd's of London wouldn't have been the first that would have shared their view across market. It's held by many, but increasingly it's less about one individual compared to another individual, or even one business compared to another business. Increasingly, it's about what was the value chain that delivered that built asset relative to another value chain that delivered a different built asset. What's the project team? And each project team is fundamentally predicated on, the cast of characters that work together to achieve a quality, sustainable, safe, durable built asset. And Lloyd's of London was saying, in the scheme of things, the strength, quality, utility of a built asset is only as good as its weakest link. And so in an environment and with a culture, and the UK is not that dissimilar from some of the challenges that we've had here in Australia in our built environment, and the criticisms and concerns that have been lobbied, is looking for ways of being able to evidence both the individual ratings of the various players, but also the project team in its entirety. So we've gone to great lengths to work across industry to understand what are the key attributes across each of those disciplines. And Chris from BNR has been one of the important contributors in that process. We've got a number of experts and people in industry to assist with each of the various scorecards. We've looked at certifiers, we're looking at architects, we're looking at engineers, a range of different practitioners and consultants, suppliers, manufacturers, and others. Right at the moment, we're providing ratings on developers and builders in accordance with our commitments and agreed plan with the government, and are looking forward to a strong uptake from a range of other practitioners this year. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you very much, Brad. Chris, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting how far the rating scheme will go one day as far as subcontractors and even suppliers. But I do echo that the key is to have a strong team in the delivery of the project. So the developer, the builder, the certifier, the key lead consultants as well. And then to that end, the strata manager is the other ingredient to that success. So I couldn't think why you wouldn't get rated, to be honest. I couldn't imagine there'd be a good reason why you wouldn't do it. It sounds like the benefits are there, and I think the danger is if you don't, you move out of residential and you build bus stops.
Thank you very much, Chris. Next question is, how often do you recommend to renew the rating?
Yeah, I guess that will really depend. It'll depend on the reason for why a party obtains their rating in the first place. Right at the moment, the large majority of ratings that are being obtained are what are called point-in-time ratings. In other words, it's a rating at the point where we provide that rating, and it's time date stamped. There are other types of ratings that we can provide, which are called monitored ratings, which have ongoing surveillance, and they keep a real-time, dynamic, updated, active rating in the market. In practice at the moment, we're seeing a huge uptake in the number of point-in-time ratings. However, I would envisage in due course, as this continues to mature and build in momentum, we'll probably see a growing proportion shift towards monitored ratings to provide an active rating surveillance. So the question then, I guess, is how often should a point-in-time rating be renewed, or what's the time frame, the durability of a point-in-time rating? And that will really vary. It'll vary from one segment to another and from one entity within that segment to another. So different banks may have a different appetite for relying on ratings that are more than 12 months old. Same in the insurance industry. Each of them will have their own risk appetite statement. They'll each have their own policies. However, as a general rule, and based on our experience, I think you'll find that there is a diminishing amount of return on point-in-time ratings beyond 12 months. So if you're in this space and you're looking to be recognized as a trusted and rated player, then I would suggest it's probably appropriate that you be considering obtaining an updated rating, possibly every 12 months. But it really depends on your need and why you secured a rating in the first place. Was it about obtaining a significantly large funding program, and that was a one-off? Was it about a particular insurance discount that you were looking to obtain as a one-off? I think you'll find, though, in due course, there'll be a strong desire by the market to continue to have players going through that process to demonstrate they are continuing to be a trustworthy player. Chris, is there anything you would add to that?
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I would say that the insurance sector will probably greatly encourage us to do that, to keep their risk exposure down, particularly contract works, professional indemnity, and other policies that will come out in the future. But I think that'll be just part of our new business.
Thank you very much.
Just on that, yeah, I agree, Chris. And I think you'll find that for parties that go through this process, in practice, there's generally two very different pathways in the financial services industry. There's a pathway if you're rated and you'll go down that path, and there'll be a pathway if you're unrated and you'll go down that path. And so I think as people become more aware of the benefits of being rated, they'll actually see firsthand the impacts and benefits they'll obtain as a part of going down that pathway. Sorry, Andy, I think you're going to say.
That's all right. Thank you very much, Brad and Chris. And next question is, if the rating can be challenged in the assessment criteria you mentioned, or if additional evidence will change the ratings?
Yeah, so I think in the outline that both Chris and I shared in that engagement process, there's a specific step that talks about taking the time to review the rating, to understand the factors behind the rating, to challenge or correct any errors of fact. And that's an appropriate part of our process. So for those that are going through obtaining a detailed assessment, looking to obtain a gold rating outcome, it's an important part of the process. So yes, insofar as the actual methodology is concerned, I mean, this question, probably is extending and going beyond the question you've asked, but we have an important governance structure in place over the methodology. We've worked very closely with the government and with industry around the attributes that identify a trustworthy developer, builder, certifier, practitioner, etc. And so we have a forum that we meet with that industry group to review the methodology, and any changes to that methodology will be reviewed by that group before there are changes, but we welcome feedback. If people have ideas about what we can do to further strengthen, mature, refine, and evolve this as we continue to all operate in an environment of emerging data assets, I encourage you to reach out to connect with your industry associations and to be working through them as a part of contributing into the iCIRT process.
Thank you very much. Next question is, to access the rating, now a lump sum fee is requested to review one company's rating. If the information can be made available to public, or if any subscription options are available.
Yeah, that's right. So the process of going through and publishing a rating enables the business to use a whole range of various mediums in order to communicate its rating to the broader market. Obviously, it's important to the government, to Equifax, to industry, that we monitor and have some level of surveillance over the way in which ratings are being used in the market. Because what we all want to do is to safeguard and protect the value of those that have gone to the effort of getting rated, by ensuring that there aren't some out there that might misrepresent or mispurport to have a rating when they don't. So there's a number of agency protocols around the release, dissemination, disclosure, or publication of ratings. But there is a process that we can enable for rated practitioners to actually go and publish their ratings on all of their marketing collateral, on their websites, in their email signatures as a part of that process.
Thank you very much, Brett. Is there anything you would like to add, Chris?
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile, particularly for Brad, to point out that there is a bit of a safe space in the process. So you could start the journey quite worried that every bit of the process is made public about your organization's business, but that doesn't happen to well down the back end once you give the blessing. So there's a whole gap analysis and just like any accreditation or audit process where you get reviewed, there's a whole gap analysis for you as the person or the company getting rated. And so you can probably put your guard down a little bit and use that process for the best outcome. And then once you get past that phase, then your ratings is a choice that you have as to how you disclose them and what you want to do going forward. And if you feel you're not quite there yet, then you hold back and don't publish the rating yet. Work a bit harder.
Thank you, Chris. Next question is, Equifax is a private company. How to make sure the rating system are transparent and fair enough to the public? Will a third-party government agency monitor the process?
Yeah, a good question again, Alan, around governance. So one of the things that's important right from the beginning of this is that we actually work together across the public and private sector to ensure that we've got the right attributes, the metrics that matter, looking for objective sources of information, looking for evidence in order to help promote those that are trusted and rated. And so to that end, we've established an industry working group, and we've been working with that working group now for several years. It contains representatives from various industry associations and across the market more broadly, financiers, insurers, legal practitioners, representatives of strata bodies. And so collectively, we've worked hard to ensure that we've got fit for purpose scorecards that actually will derive the right trustworthy outcomes. As a part of the ongoing review of the methodology of the performance of ratings of any subsequent calibrations is about presenting back to that forum and looking for them to approve any subsequent changes to the methodology. So very open about working through that process and eager to ensure that we ourselves have the same governance structures in place that we hope that builders, developers and others have.
Thank you very much. Next question you have already answered in the chat room, but I will just ask you anyway. Is buildingrating.com website fully functional?
Yeah, that's right. So a good question. Again, yes, it is. It's operational. And what we're doing at the moment, Andy, is encouraging people that would like to learn more to actually get in touch with our team. And in that way, we can make sure that we configure, calibrate, or put in place the right portals, protocols, and assistance to enable them to obtain their rating and then publish their rating. As I shared earlier, we'd made a commitment to the government that we would actually wait until March before we actually publish our public-facing dashboard. Yeah. That will only contain the ratings of those players that have told us they would like to publish their rating. Right. So all the information they provide and the ratings that they receive, it's all confidential. It doesn't go anywhere. Unless, of course, they say, I would actually like to publish our rating. And that's where the consumers, the broader market, will actually have visibility in due course to that public-facing dashboard. That's why I think there's such a race for people to be trying to get onto that dashboard before it's published. And then that will continue to grow in the months and years ahead.
Thank you very much, Brett. Next question is for someone looking to purchase an off-the-plan apartment. Can you please go into more detail on what the process will be for them to obtain an iCIRT rating on the developers and the builders?
Yeah, so the market will have access to all, at no cost, to all published ratings. So if you're a builder, a developer, practitioner that's obtained a rating and you've elected to publish that rating, the broader market will have visibility and access to know that you are a trusted rated player. You've got a gold star rating outcome. For those that haven't, the broader market will still have an ability to connect with Equifax to obtain a brief assessment, or what's called a bronze rating. And that is based on a range of public and proprietary data sources that enable us to provide a bronze rating outcome to the broader market. Now, a bronze rating outcome is not a gold rating outcome. They're very different, because a gold rating outcome is predicated on the opportunity for us to connect with the team to understand their operating practices, their governance structures, their insurance history, their claims, a whole range of other information sources that build up confidence for the consumer, knowing that they've actually gone to the effort to be transparent, to go through an independent and rigorous review process. And so I think you'll find that in due course, there'll be more and more players that have gone through that process and fewer that are perceived to be hiding in the shadows.
Thank you very much, Brett. Next question is, how does iCIRT work for developers who have projects across different states? Is that is there a single assessment criteria?
Yeah, so the Equifax is a global business. We'd started this very much with the view of initially providing a trans-Tasman capability. We have offices all across Australia and New Zealand with an enormous amount of data and practitioners and people that have worked together to put in place not just a national framework, but a trans-Tasman one. We've worked very hard to ensure that each of those are fit for purpose, that we understand the demographics, the firmographics, and the makeup of small. We understand what large looks like. We understand the distinctions between developers or builders. We understand the different data sources available across the various states. And so again, while our focus initially in working with the New South Wales government has been providing ratings in New South Wales, we're receiving interest right across the country to obtain their iCIRT ratings. So I would envisage that as this, and we're well engaged in conversations across not just Australia, but New Zealand, with interested parties wanting to progress and obtain ratings, the iCIRT ratings on various players.
Thank you very much. And next question is about, so when there is a foreign stake shareholders or directors, and they're not in Australia all the time, how do you rate them? If the parent company is in China, will that impact the rating as well?
Yeah, so again, it's all about looking for signs of positive, trustworthy behaviours and or evidences of adverse behaviour or misconduct. So a key part of the process is really looking at background checks of various personnel, in the same way that if anybody was going for a bank loan or completing an insurance application, they're probably going through a similar process. So we're looking at all the various connections abroad. We're looking at the various players that are involved. As a part of the Know Your Client regulatory obligations across financial services markets, KYC, is performing anti-money laundering checks, looking at politically exposed persons, understanding whether there are sanctions imposed. We're looking at the international backgrounds of various personnel in order to understand, is there evidences of trustworthy behaviours, of experience in successfully running and managing businesses, providing, hopefully trustworthy built assets, or vice versa, are there signs and evidences that are concerning? And so we look and scour as a global business with all of our partners abroad, using a range of information sources to be able to provide insight here locally to Australia and or New Zealand clients and customers.
Thank you very much. Next question is, will the rating system take into account the size of the company? For example, number of employees, turnover, and project sizes.
Yeah, that's right. And, it's a good question. So we've worked, again, very closely with, as example, in the building space with the Master Builders Association, looking for feedback around ways in which we can ensure that the scorecards have been calibrated to support small businesses, medium-sized businesses, large businesses. And the people on this call might already be aware that there are a number of builders and developers that have actually already published their ratings, and some of those are small, some of them are medium, some of them are large. And so it gives you some confidence to know that each size player has already been through this system, and we've received really good feedback. So we're always open for, like all businesses, hopefully, to continuous improvement. Always welcome feedback, but we've been really encouraged by the feedback we've received so far.
Thank you very much. And next question is, how can we use the rating system to select builders for our projects? And also another audience asked about, does this rating system apply to Class 1 builders?
Yeah, so I'll answer the first question. So there is a number of government agencies and private sector bodies and project management firms which have all been reaching out with the view of being able to obtain iCIRT ratings as a part of their pre-qualification or procurement decision-making process. And I would envisage that will only continue. There is a strong appetite when people are putting together build teams and or considering, various tendering parties, who are the more trustworthy? Because ultimately everyone has a vested interest in making sure that the end outcome is reflective of the quality of the care of the people that are in those project teams putting together those assets, those built assets. So hopefully that provides some context for your first question. The second question was around Class 1. And what I would, probably reference there is CIRA's latest updates as of December, just last year, made a number of changes which governs the Home Building Compensation Fund. And what they've put in place now is a mechanism that enables iCare to actually use ratings of regulated agencies, so vis-a-vis iCIRT, in the Class 1 decision-making process. So we're working through that process now to assist enabling iCare and or future insurers to understand the value and the utility of the iCIRT ratings and how that can feed through into their process and how that can benefit Class 1.
Thank you very much, Brett. Is there anything you would like to add, Chris?
No, I think the Class 1 observation is very important. I think, again, to bring the insurance cost down is a huge win for the whole industry. So I can see that getting traction.
Thank you very much. So we still have some questions coming in, but we're running out of time. It's already 8:10. My colleagues just shared Brett's colleagues Yash's contact details on the chat room. So if you have any more questions regarding to this rating system, you can contact Yash with the contact details on the chat room. Is there anything else you want to add, Brett or Chris, to today's section?
Now, I'd just like to recognize, Andy, the great work of the Chinese Builders Association and the way in which the members tonight have taken the time and interest to learn more. This is coming. The game has changed. And, again, I would encourage people to get on the bus quickly so they don't lose their spot in the queue. We've got a pretty full dance card, but, we'll do everything we can to accommodate the market demand. So very encouraged by the feedback we've received and the interest that's being expressed and the number of ratings that are coming through. And we look forward to working with you and your members throughout the months and years ahead.
Thank you very much, Brett. What about you, Chris?
Yeah, just to echo that, I think the Chinese Building Association, such a huge footprint in the New South Wales property sector. So a real opportunity to be a leader in that space. And so I encourage you to grab it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Brad and Chris, for sharing such great content with us tonight. Thank you to all of our audience for supporting the Building and Development Seminar. If you would like to get in contact with our speakers, please add our WeChat assistant for their contacts. This concludes our program for today. See you next time.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
you.
Thanks
Bye.
everyone again.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Brad. Thanks, Chris. Thanks,
Thanks a lot.
yeah.
Brad, thanks, Chris.